It's so bad for the economy, but the economy isn't about the economy. What's it like? We basically shut down our country, and we did that in order to keep people separated, keep people apart. They're not working in offices. They're not in airplanes together. We really shut it down. And, 151 other countries very much shut down. But here we had the greatest economy in the world. We had the greatest economy in the history of our country. And I had to go from doing a great job for 3 years to shutting it down. But you know what? We're going to build it up. We're going to build it up rapidly.
You see, in the very beginning, what they tried to do is they tried to get the president on being a misogynist. They tried to show this video of him talking about, which was recorded years before, about him grabbing women. And they thought that would get people's attention. That would get the women's attention, and they would make him into a misogynist. And then the next thing they did is they tried to embarrass him over his bankruptcies, because he owned a lot of casinos and hotels, and he had committed bankruptcy several times. But he is a big businessman, and in the course of doing a lot of business, eventually you're going to have a few companies that have to do bankruptcy. But they tried to embarrass him over that, and they thought, well, the people will see that and they'll back away from him because they won't have the confidence. Then they tried to throw out this stuff that he was incestuous molester of his daughter because he made comments about his daughter's beauty, which she is a very beautiful woman, and there's nothing wrong with a father admiring the beauty of his daughter. But that wasn't enough. The American people went ahead and elected Donald Trump president. And then, after that, we went through the whole Mueller investigation for 3 years. And millions of dollars were spent to try to find some kind of collusion between him and Russia. But did it produce anything? Did it resonate with the public saying, oh yes, he's a secret communist, he's working for Putin? No, it didn't produce anything. They finally issued the report, and they basically said there was nothing here to see. That frustrated the hell out of the Democrats over here. And so then they just said, I know what we're going to do. We're going to impeach him. Well, what are we going to impeach him over? Well, I know. Let's impeach him over a phone call with President Zelensky out of Ukraine, and we'll make a big deal out of a nothing phone call. And they tried to impeach him over that. And we'll just do it the way we did Nixon. And
therefore, I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow. Vice President Ford will be sworn in as president at that hour in this office.
And maybe he'll resign, because you see, Nixon actually never had any impeachment hearings. They started impeachment proceedings, and then he resigned because he lost the confidence of the Republican Party. And they thought that they would be able to convince the Republican Party, if not the people, to abandon Donald Trump. We all wondered during the whole impeachment process, what is next? What other rabbits can the Democrats seem to pull out of their hat to throw against our Teflon president? And we never dreamed that it would be a pandemic. Yes, it's a pandemic. And so we all tried to think, what else can the Democrats dream up? What else could they throw at the president? Maybe another impeachment? Maybe some kind of embarrassment. Maybe they can drag some skeleton out of his closet and finally prove to the American people that he's the scoundrel that they want him to be. We never dreamed that it would be a pandemic that the Democrats would plan. Now, I realize that this is going to sound like, well, I should be wearing a tinfoil hat. But stay with me for a minute, because I'm going to line this out for you as simple as I can. I've thought about this, and I've thought about this over many weeks. It's very clear and apparent to me that what has happened here is that there is a cabal. There is a cabal of powerful families. I mean powerful families, not your local rich people, but I'm talking about powerful families that can control all kinds of moving parts in all of the different empires in the world. And what's happened is I believe these powerful powers have gotten together with the Chinese government, employed them to engineer this perfect virus. This virus that it has to be tempered just right. It has to sort of look like a Spanish flu or some derivative of the swine flu. If they can engineer the perfect virus, and this virus, it would need to infect a massive amount of people, but they wouldn't want it to kill a lot of people, not anywhere near what the Spanish flu did, but they would engineer it so that it would infiltrate a massive amount of people and a massive amount of territory in a very short time, and of course it would have to kill off some. Now, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, well, wait a minute, the Chinese wouldn't want to kill their own people. Of course not. No, they wouldn't have any problem killing tens of thousands of their own people. The Chinese mindset has no problem killing off millions of people if they have to, if it reaches the point of the party. Remember, we're dealing with communists here, and the communist mindset is that whatever it takes, the ends justifies the means. Now, the ends justifies the means is an interesting concept, but the communists take it to the farthest point that you can imagine. If it meets the ends, then it doesn't matter how many people you kill. So the Chinese don't mind how many people they have to kill, how many people they have to destroy, how many lives they have to destroy. Anyway, they were hired hands, and they were promised that they would be partially in control of a new world economy, a new world currency, which is, I think this is where all this is headed. I'm talking about the people who are at the top of the top, what we'll call the puppet masters. Your leaders that we look at, Donald Trump or any of the senatorial leaders or any of the representatives, this is not the top of the top. Most of them are hired hands. Not my man Trump. I do not believe that my man Trump is part of the cabal, but I think that my man Trump has to work within and without this cabal. I think he's maneuvering things the best way that he can. Now, in my last show, we talked about the numbers. We talked about the viruses in the past, and we talked about other ways that people die in this country. And we're going to cover a little bit more of that today, but later on in the show, I'll talk about some more numbers. And I'll bring us up to date on new numbers of the dead and the infected here in the United States and I guess the world abroad. But before we go with those numbers, just stay with me here and step back from the trees so you can see the entire forest. We went into this virus thing several weeks ago out of the blue and tried an experiment that we've never tried before. Now, why is this? Let's face it, we have become a squishy, feminist culture because we're squeamish about the dead. We don't want anybody to die. I mean, your baby boomer generation alone, they don't want to get old. They don't want to get old to the point to where they don't want to be called grandma and grandpa. They want to be called moo-moo and poo-poo or some crap like that. So why would we expect that the baby boomer generation be willing to die very easily? Of course they don't want to die. They're scared to death of dying. Our entire society is scared to death of anybody dying. Yet people do. People die all the time, and we just don't talk about it. We don't really talk about the numbers or what we could really do to prevent those deaths. But we'll get to those numbers later on. The point that I'm making is that you can care too much. You can value life too much to the point to where it actually harms you. If you care about life too much, let's say, for example, that you have a family. Let's say you have a family of 4. And let's say you have one child that is sick. Maybe they're retarded. Maybe they have some kind of deformity. And you'd say, well, you want to care for that one. Of course, it's human to want to care for your own young. I understand that, and I'm not arguing with that. But what I am saying is that how far do you take that? Do you take that to the detrimental point of the destruction of your healthy children, the destruction of your family? How far do you go to destroy everything that not just you built, but maybe your father built or your grandfather? How far do you take it to save a life? That's a very good question. How many people do you have to throw overboard on the boat to save that one life? And we're asked to make that decision now on this whole coronavirus thing. They've asked us to shut down. They've asked us to stay at home. They've asked us to distance each other. And how convenient is that? And I'm going to come back to that in a second. They've asked us to do all of these things. Now they're asking people to wear masks. I tell you, right now, I'm not wearing a mask. Not ever. Well, except maybe for Halloween. But I'm not wearing a mask. I'm not wearing gloves. I'm not distancing myself from anybody. I regularly have the guys over. We smoke cigars. We have a great time. And we're trying to treat this as if it was just a regular day, except there's no place to go other than maybe the grocery store, the gasoline station. You can drive through at the bank, and you can go to the post office. How convenient. But nobody is going to work, or very few people are going to work. Only your necessary people are going to work. How far do we take this? And the president is beginning to ask these questions. How far can we take this to supposedly flatten the curve? Now let's go back to the Spanish flu just for a second. Now there was 3 waves in the Spanish flu. At the end of January, early February, the Spanish flu began. It spread out of the Midwest, and it spread all the way to the Atlantic Ocean and across to France, and then across to England and Spain and so forth and so on, all the way to India. The Spanish flu was devastating, but at first, the Spanish flu, it only hit minimally. And it infected a lot of people, just like this thing is infecting a lot of people, but not a lot of people died from it. A few, but not a lot. It was only in the second wave, and it started to peter out around June or July of 1917, and then in August, all of a sudden, it morphed into another type. The same virus, but a different type. And the second phase came in, and it did devastation. Now, so they were working off this model, and they dreamed this up. So they said, okay, if we engineer this just right, to where this virus will kill, it will kill some, because it's got to kill some. You're not going to get anybody scared. I mean, if everybody gets a cold and sneezes and it gets over it in a week, then nobody's going to stop anything. But so it's got to infect a lot of people, and it's got to kill a few. But it's got to spread like wildfire. Now, how are we going to accomplish this? This is the Chinese talking. How are we going to accomplish this? Once we engineer this perfect virus, how are we going to get it out to the world? Because we need it. It's kind of like going out and planting a bunch of mines, but you don't want them to blow up as you put them out, or you don't want them to blow up one at a time. You kind of want them to blow up all at once. And so the way you can do this is they can put, I don't know, say 1,000 Chinamen together, infect them with a disease, make sure they're the type that carries the disease, but they don't really have any symptoms. I believe we call that asymptomatic. And so we send these 1,000 Chinese men, we dress them up like businessmen, we send them to the United States, we send them to Europe, we send them all over the globe, and they just casually go around and they meet and greet and so forth and so on. I believe that I ran into one of these Chinese agents at the cigar shop. Yes, I know now this is going to sound crazy, but I truly believe I did. Back in about the late January or so, maybe it was February, early February, this Chinese fella came in, very nice guy, came in, he sat down, we were watching the debate together, and he talked to me, he shook my hand, he shook several other people's hands, and immediately right after that, we got sick. I got a sore throat, I got a little bit of a cough, I didn't get any fever, but I felt, it was fast, it was really fast. I got over it in about a week, and I haven't had any symptoms since. And several other guys at the cigar shop I talked to, they also got sick right after that. And it was very strange because the guy came in and he bought a really nice cigar. And he sat down, I know exactly which seat he sat in. He sat there and he watched the debate, and I know he was Chinese because they were talking about the North Koreans in the Democratic stage there between Bernie and Biden. And I turned to him, and I didn't turn to him, I was just basically talking to the room, to the other guys. I said, I don't know what the Democrats are griping about. Everybody knows that the Chinese own the North Koreans. The North Koreans aren't going to make any deal with Trump or England or France or any of them without the permission of the Chinese, because the Chinese own the North Koreans. And I looked at this fella, and he looked at me, and he gave me a thumbs up. I said, "Are you Chinese?" He said, "Yes, I am." Right after that, and he hadn't even finished his cigar. I mean, he hadn't even gotten to the halfway point, and that's the sweet spot in cigars. But we'll have to talk about that on our cigar night. But he got up, and he says, "I've got to go." He was dressed in a suit. He was very nice, very pleasant, very well-mannered, and he left. And then we all got sick. I believe that this was one of those agents, and I believe those agents went throughout the entire world and infected as many people as possible with this virus. We know it all started in Wuhan, China. We heard about this, and of course they had to kill off several thousand of their people to make this look real. And then all of a sudden they decided that they would expel all of the American media, and conveniently the very next day after that they announced that it looks like that we've got a handle on the virus. It looks like that less people are being infected. Their numbers were going down. Their dead were going down. Could this be because the Chinese had some kind of kill vaccine? A vaccine that they're holding so that when they're ready to be done with it, they can be done with it? How convenient. Their markets didn't change. Their businesses didn't necessarily shut down. They were in the Chinese New Year and they extended it 1 week, which caused a distribution problem. Maybe it got out of hand a little bit more than what they anticipated. I wouldn't doubt that. Nothing's perfect. No plan that anybody lays, especially the communists, can be perfect. But they did this. If you like this show, then you'll like all the shows we have on Barbed Wire Strategy, because we have travel shows and we have politics shows and we have the cigar shows, and I personally love the cigar shows. But join us next time on Barbed Wire Strategy, and don't forget to subscribe and like. And you need to subscribe because subscribers are harder to come by than hen's teeth. Help me and the Donald out and subscribe and like our channel. And also, don't forget to eat your Lucky Charms. They're good for you, they've got lots of vitamins and minerals, and they're hard to get, especially in the coronavirus thing. And also remember, every now and then we take a call from the President of the United States or the Queen of England. Oh, here's the President now. Hey, listen, I'll talk to you later. We'll see you on the next Barbed Wire Strategy.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. President. How are you doing?
How are you? How you doing? Okay?
Just fine.
You see what's going on now? You're not going to be forgetting about this. We closed things up. We had no choice.